To me, honesty with yourself is your first step toward the kind of happiness. Tell yourself the truth about who you are and what you want and what's going on.
Hey everybody, I am here today. I'm very excited to be chatting with the man, the GOAT, the chairman of the board of Collopy Real Estate, the founding father of one of the largest RE/MAX franchises in the world, and the broker owner of the award-winning Real Trends Trending, Swanapool Swooning, T360 Spinning, RE/MAX Results, the real estate brokerage that every year has the highest per transaction, per agent average of any large real estate brokerage in the United States of America. Number one every year in per agent transaction average, Mr. John Collopy.
Wow, that's going to be hard to follow up on. Thank you.
Hard to follow up. That's your accomplishment. I mean, that is your legacy.
You know, one thing to comment on in that, when my late business partner and I started the company, the concept of how many offices are we going to have, how big are we going to be, that was never in the business plan. And we started off with the concept, number one, the sales executives to customer. And that was totally unheard of back in the ancient history when we started the company. Mm-hmm. Sales executives were viewed as they're lucky to be at the brokerage, and they weren't treated with the same dignity and respect that we did. So we started off with who our customer was. But then the second thing was per person productivity. We only want people that sell houses. And we're not interested in how many people work here. I'm not even interested if I can make $1,000 off somebody. No, you got to sell houses. If you're not going to be a full-time agent looking and growing your business, then I can inappropriately give you a couple names of where to transfer to where their productivity is 4 or 6 transactions, and that's not us. So thank you for that.
Well, and it's noteworthy because I think at a certain point it's not just about only having productive agents. It's the fact that when you have you surround yourself with productive people, they become more and more productive together, right? The rising tide sort of raises all ships. And
it sounds so simple when you say that, but it's true. You're part of your surroundings. You know, if you go to a bar where everybody gets drunk and goes crazy, you're probably going to get drunk and go crazy. Mm-hmm. If you go to the gym where everybody works out, you're probably going to work out. It's going to affect where you go and where you choose. And so we think being in a company that's dedicated to you, first of all, having happiness and a good life, take care of your family, take care of your soul, then go to work. So we're 4 or 5 on the list.
Yeah.
And you still have to pay attention to that. I haven't met that many people who say, you know, I don't care how much money I make. I'm willing to be a homeless person when I get older. I don't hear that much. I hear more people that are looking at, how can I take care of myself when I'm 60, 70? Goodness, in the age we live to now, we have to have some money. So,
right,
kind of cool.
Now I could probably talk to you about this all day, but I've got a goal here, and the goal here was to talk to you today because you have some exciting news to share. You have published your second book.
Oh yeah,
and that book right here, The Reward of Doing, is out now. Mm-hmm. This is a follow-up to your original book, which was published in 2018. Is that right?
I'd say that's a good guess.
The Reward of Knowing. I'm sensing, first of all, a pattern here.
And I can assure you that book 3 is totally off the realm of those two. So book 3 is going to be interplanetary different.
Interesting.
But book 2 came as a result of some introspections I've gotten in addition. So we're talking about our desire to treat the sales executive as a customer. Mm-hmm. And so as a result of that, I've done a lot of coaching.
Right.
And what book 2 is a lot about is about one of the biggest stumbling blocks for me intellectually is why do people say I want to be this, I want to do this, I want to have that, but then they don't change their behavior in order to acquire it. And so if you want to sell more houses, okay, you got to call more people. You got to come to work more often. You can't go home and watch Oprah. You got to go to work. And if you don't want to work more or call more or door knock more, then don't tell yourself you want to sell more houses. Just say, I'm really happy with what I've got, and I'm going to go home and lay on the couch.
Because wanting it isn't enough. You got to wanting it, is not enough. You have to follow up with action, right? You have to.
But even when you say you want it, you're fibbing to yourself because you don't want it. You wish it would fall in your lap. Yeah. But so if you're saying, I'd like to lose some weight, it can't get any easier than that. Don't eat so much.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Or it's really like reframing it. That's a good example. Saying I want to lose weight is maybe not even the right statement to say. Say I want to be more healthy. And if I
that's a good statement too.
Make steps to be more healthy on a daily basis, and eventually I will lose weight.
That's a better overall viewpoint because there's other steps to add to that will help you lose weight, but also help you have a little bit better life.
Yeah, but in your, I think your audience that you're really speaking to are the sales executives, whether with us or with another company, but the lessons and the observations that you've had over the years talking to people about, if this is what you want to do, if you want to make it in real estate, kind of brass tacks real world, this is the kind of thing that you have to do, right, in order to be successful, in order to reach your goals.
Book 2 is designed for everyone. Yes, we talk about real estate a little bit because it's been such a big part of my life the last 40 years.
True.
But it just has to do with people who are being introspective in thinking about what's next, what I can do. And, I'm such a dork, I think happiness is number one. What are you doing to make yourself happy? Nobody else. You first. Because you can't be your best possible person for other people if you don't like yourself.
I kind of think we already talked about it, but your original book, The Reward of Knowing, I feel like was just more of a story of your story.
Yeah, a little bit more autobiographical.
And then the Reward of Doing is taking a step out. There is some autobiographical elements.
Some things I've learned from what I've done, and we try to apply them to things that you can take a look at or think about and see if there's some learning that can be had in terms of growing as a person.
Yeah, and and I only got an advance copy yesterday, so I wasn't able to speed read through the whole thing, but I, right off the bat, there was the story of this person that you met with who wanted to make it, become a titan of real estate, but she was also a young mother, and she also was prioritizing, rightfully so, her children. And you told her not the time, or at least not the time that you could give her to reach her goals, right, at the moment.
I have a lot of behavior characteristics, and some of them people would go, that's really good, and some of them would go, boy, he's annoying. But telling the truth is one of the most important things in my life. So if you're going to talk to me about your career, your life, your family, I'm not going to make anything up. I'm going to tell you what I've experienced and share with you what I hear you saying to me. And in her particular case, her surroundings wouldn't allow her to achieve that yet. She could sell houses and she could make a living, but you ain't going to be a rock star when you got those other things going on.
Because her why was still grounded in raising her family and being there for them.
Had to.
Right.
Had to. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, another part that I got, I saw that I personally, read and reread because it really, spoke to me in my role as general counsel for this company. Did you get screwed? ? Get used to it. and I really, I couldn't help but smile and then I smile, but kind of smile through the tears because I work in what ends up being the darker side of the business, agents getting sued, squabbling over commissions, things that get happen, clients that go rogue, stuff like that. And almost inevitably, I'll say everybody in this business, not to say that they should get screwed, but they will get screwed, right?
Absolutely.
It'll happen.
Absolutely.
And not to say that I think everybody would end up on the wrong side of a lawsuit, but almost inevitably somebody will end up on the wrong side of a situation that through no fault of their own, they wind up paying for.
That is possible.
And it's not just limited to real estate agents, probably everyone of every walk of life. You end up shoveling up the stuff of someone else's horse, right?
And what you said that was so appropriate, that's life. There are going to be ups and downs. How many times have we heard that, when I go to work in the morning, I'm really happy. I feel good about this opportunity. I don't always feel that way when I'm going home at night.
Yeah.
Some days I get whooped just because of and goodness gracious, where you deal mostly with people's problems, it's just a lot to have happen. And so sometimes by the end of the day, I've had it. But by the next morning, I'm ready to go again. And that's what's valuable to me, is to start over and be happy. But there are days when you're in the real estate business where things don't go just the way you want it.
Yeah.
Now, what we also said, anywhere in life, things don't always go just the way you want it. So it's not just real estate, but we talk a little bit more about it because that's who I am.
Yeah, but I mean, I think in anyone who's, if happen to be listening to this, who's not in the real estate world, could take a moment to understand particular pain. I mean, imagine if you're working a 9-to-5 regular job and you just woke up one day and Friday came and the paycheck wasn't there,
Right.
and the employer just said, "Nope, not going to happen this time." Too bad, right? A lot of people would be understandably beyond distressed, right? And that is something that the added stress comes from in this business, which is you don't get the regular paychecks. The commissions only come when the closings happen. Those schedules can be wildly erratic, and it does bring in a total additional level of tension and emotion to it. But the best advice I think we both could give agents is just to have the perspective and capacity to say that there is more business out there, not to get too bogged down in the past, and keep moving forward if you can.
And without being repetitive, the book is not about real estate. It's about your behavior and how you adjust to things, and how one of the number one things that I've tried to coach people with, be honest with yourself. It's so hard to fathom people that say things to themselves that they know they're not going to do. Don't say it. Just let it go. And so the book is a lot about that conundrum of being honest with yourself. And to me, honesty with yourself is your first step toward the kind of happiness. Tell yourself the truth about who you are and what you want and what's going on.
Yeah. And is that something that you've done in your own life, throughout your entire life?
I've had so many mental health problems. I've suffered from depression, anxiety, chemical dependency. There isn't much form of adult crazy that John hasn't had. And those learning experiences, you do get stuff from them. And some of the things I got early in life from AA meetings were phenomenal. I've had the same therapist for 25 years. Why? Because I want to get better. It's just that simple. The things we talk about the last 5 to 10 years are so different than the things we talked about the first 3 years, where I was just trying to survive without going crazy. Now it's about, how do we move forward? How do we give back? How can I continue to be the man I always dreamed of being? And so it's totally different. And you won't find many people that have had the same therapist for 25 years. And Dr. Mark, who's mentioned in the book many times, I still see him once a month. After all those years, we still get together and compare notes and see what's going on. And like I said, mostly I don't talk about problems anymore because I've got past the anger management. But I talk about what's next. How do I deal with the next phase of life? Because as all people know who are anywhere near my age, Getting old isn't that easy. And when you figure out that, ooh, I've already lived 85% of my life statistically, pretty scary. But
Yeah.
you got to face up to it and make sure you're doing the best you can to live your life the best you can.
Yeah. Yes. I think that is, I mean, I think that's true for all of us, regardless of what phase we are in. You know?
Yeah, no, it is. It starts somewhere when you're in your 30s or 40s where you start realizing, I don't have all of it. You know, when you're in your 20s, you're pretty much bulletproof. Anything can do. I can change, I can be, I've got forever.
Yeah.
But the older you get, you know that there's a time frame.
And you start to get more set in your ways, right? Because the habits that you've built are
Certainly can be part of it.
Yeah. So what was your favorite thing, or what was something that stands out that you enjoyed about writing this book?
Wow, that's an interesting question. Sitting down with my folder. Now, once again, I'm a geek. I don't type into a computer. I write it.
Really?
I don't write, I print. So when I'm writing the book, I'm printing what I'm going to write. And then I send it to my editor, I guess you would call her, and she redoes it, and I redo it, and we go back and forth, and we go, okay, we got a couple more pages. And so I like to sit down and write. I like the feeling. Just matches with who I am.
So I'm going to show my inner geek here, because I also was an English major, and I thought I still have someday in my mind I'd like to write a book or something like that. But if anyone's not done that in a while, that's its own muscle, right? That's its own, the discipline to, I think, be creative, to put the pen on page, especially if you're hand writing it, to be able to focus and articulate your thoughts in that way. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of work.
But that's how my brain works at that speed.
Okay.
And so I'm not that good on a keyboard. And so when I'm trying to do the keyboard, I'm not one of those people that can do it without looking at it. Mm-hmm. I just need to let my brain go. I had a teacher. I only went to college for a few quarters. And I had a creative writing teacher. And we had to do writing for creative writing. And I wrote something fiction, because that's what we're supposed to do. And my books aren't fiction, and I don't even read fiction. I only read stuff that really happened. But I wrote an article, and then, you had to go sit down with him and be reviewed. And he said, you need to take up truck driving, because you ain't going to be a writer. He didn't think I had it.
Okay.
And so if I could find him again, I'd do book 2 as a suppository, just to show him that as much of a redneck thug as I was back in those days, I still had the desire to produce writing.
Did you find yourself sort of having discipline and sitting down and like, okay, I'm going to spend an hour a day and more methodical, or was it more when the feeling struck you?
No, there was structure to it.
Okay.
There was structure to it. And if I missed a day, I didn't care. If I missed 3 days, I was worried. And I never missed a week. So there are parts of the real world that get in the way of blocking out time. And I typically write in the morning.
Okay.
Because
that's when you're
I'm just
freshest.
better. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because otherwise I would have called you a hypocrite. Because if you wanted to write a book, but you weren't setting up the infrastructure to actually write the book, then you're not actually going to ever write the book.
No, it wasn't an accident. It was thought out. And the next book is so different. I'm probably going to have to hire, and I think I'm going to hire my nephew to do research for me. Just so I can have some background on some of the things I'm talking about. And it's funny, it is going to be part of why, but it's going to be more, why do people do these things? And it's not just about that, but it's about the difference we see. How is it that we have this huge cultural gap in America? And so I grew up Northeast, wasn't that much difference than growing up North. And so we all have good news and bad news. If you grew up Northeast, it wasn't the same as growing up in Edina. But who cares? If I wanted to live in Edina in 15 years, all I had to do is work harder. So I just want everybody to grasp who they are and where they are. And once again, if you don't want that, if you want to go, I really like working part-time at a restaurant. I'm happy with that. More power to you.
Again, this book is written by a real estate broker, but it is not just written for a real estate audience. It's written for anyone. But this is kind of a real estate podcast.
No, but that's
So,
fine.
Yeah.
Because that's where my life experiences are.
Right.
And so I don't have much to add about interacting with people that weren't sales executives. Sure. And so I've owned this company 37 years, and I was in real estate for almost 10 years before that. So kind of a big chunk of my life. So it may not be, quote, here's some motivational stuff so you can go sell more houses tomorrow. But it may be, here's some introspection that may help you feel better about yourself, and it'll make it easier to go sell more houses.
But I do want to talk about something that I also read and I wanted to talk to you about on the pod here today, because it is the results-driven podcast listened to by not just sales executives by RE/MAX Results. We get we learn from people who join us from other companies that other people. A lot of people are listening to this pod, which is awesome. But something that I thought stuck out to me was that you wrote, plans can change. The economy can impact your path towards your goal. Stuff happens and your plan has to be able to accommodate shifts. Certainly in real estate, we've seen the impact that economic shifts like inflation and interest rates can have on our business. Are we going out of business? No. Am I going to jump off a bridge? No. Do we have to be more aware of things like cost? Yes. Now, if the economy goes to hell, more acquisitions will be available to me. And the last time we were in this kind of economy back in 08 and 09, I did really, really well with acquisitions. So my business plan would likely move in that direction for the duration. That paragraph sort of stuck out to me because the question that I wanted to ask you is that there's doom and gloom on the news. There's, we are seeing the rising interest rates and everything else. Looking back and seeing where this started, this business idea from yours started many years ago, and the fact that it not only survived 2008 to 2010, which is 10, 15 years ago, the housing market crash, but thrived and in fact really kind of exploded in that time frame. Not to say that there's a doom on the horizon, but change is inevitable. And I was genuinely curious if you could try to go back in your mind 15 years to where you were at in 2008 as a leader, as a broker, and what were the things that you were thinking about and you did? What were the things that maybe not just that you wanted to do, but you did to keep your company thriving?
I went to high school in downtown Minneapolis, and I used to hitchhike home from high school. And I would go over to Central Avenue right at the start of the 3rd Avenue Bridge. And that's where I'd hitchhike up Central Avenue Northeast. And so when 2008 hit, I did have memories of the bridge, and I did reflect on the option of jumping off that sucker because things were going really bad. And when you're losing a lot of money and you don't have the money you're losing, it's kind of stressful as a business owner. But you have to be reflective of, are we good at what we do? Are we treating the people fairly? Because the economy will improve. Now, you got to figure out how to hang on through downtimes, because there's always going to be downtimes. But we made it through, and there were times when, how can I say this without sounding too dorky? I just didn't have any money. I was living off my girlfriend sometimes. She had money. And that didn't embarrass me because that's where we were at. And we were going to turn this around and we were going to get this back on track and the world's going to be all right. And I'm going to go to work the next day.
Yeah.
And it's just a question of how much you believe in yourself. So there are still people making a lot of money. So in the real estate industry, 10, 15% of our sales executives had the best year they ever had. Well, the world's coming to an end. Well, not for them, it's not. And so anytime there's negativity, there's opportunity.
Right.
And most people don't feel that way. They get overwhelmed by oh no, what's going to happen? And the fact is, we're going to get through it. Fact is, we're going to make it. Fact is, we're going to learn from this. And not only are we going to be better sales executives, but we're going to be better people. And that's a pretty good deal. But you go through some rough times to do that. And everybody's experienced that, whether it was in school, whether it was in relationships, whether it was with your health. We've all had rough times. And just keep going forward.
And not to say that we can never predict the future, but that was a particularly daunting foe in 2008 to 10 because of the real estate being the driving force of that economic downturn, which appears unlikely to replicate itself anytime soon. Not
exactly, but there are people who have bought properties and they didn't do good on them. Mm-hmm. I met with one of our sales executives today, and you wouldn't guess it if you met her. She has 16 properties. Her net worth when she quits 20 years from now, multi-millionaire. Why? She buys a property or two every year.
Wow.
And if you only buy 4 or 5 in your 25-year real estate career, you're up a couple million in equity when they're all paid for. And so that's one of the most amazing things about real estate is, yes, you can service your clients. Yes, you can grow as a person, but don't forget to buy something. Mm-hmm. I had one of the guys I grew up with who was very unique. He had like 2 different personalities. One personality, he was a biker. He had a biker shop and they fixed choppers and da-da-da. He was also a professor at the University of Minnesota. So he was a real 2 completely different people. And I sold him 5 duplexes in Northeast Minneapolis. And unfortunately, he passed a little earlier than you would have expected. And his daughter was a friend of mine. And he left his daughter millions. Just because he'd bought those junky properties over Northeast. And he lived Northeast. He lived in a very average house. He had a little bit of a vice in that he liked Lincoln Continentals. So he might have a Lincoln, he had a Lincoln all the time, but he was very modest in his lifestyle and vacations and things like that. But
well, as you go off to your book signing, where I'm sure many of your sales executives will be there, happy to see you and congratulate you on the hard work. And I'm looking forward to finishing this book. Is there anything else that, as you look ahead to the next year, that you want just our team to know, the real RE/MAX results, the people, the sales executives out there that you're looking forward to?
Do you want to hear something kind of corny? I mentioned to you that I have some experience with chemical dependency. And one of the parts of chemical dependency that came early in my experience with Alcohol Anonymous was living life a day at a time. And I can't offer anybody better advice than that, because yesterday's gone. Mm-hmm. No idea what's really going to happen tomorrow. Because first thing you want to do is, I woke up. So you want to win by waking up the next day. But just really locking into that, living your life a day at a time, I think that's a real focus point of how you improve you. Because if you're not happy with you, those other things aren't going to flow very well.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's profound and it's simple all at the same time, isn't it?
That's really a good way to wrap things up in terms of there is simplicity to it. You can go and be a Rhodes Scholar. I've been reading a book about a lady who's planning how the world started and showing you where the growth is, and she's just a genius, and all this stuff has mathematical equations. And about 50% of the book I don't get. But I still read it because I am learning something. So there are ways that you can grow and be something, but you can't be everything to everybody. I'm not going to ever be a college professor. I'm not going to be an English teacher. I'm not going to be a math teacher. Those aren't things that I can be. But that doesn't mean I'm not interested in those topics. So kind of cool.
A business coach, a broker owner, a business person, husband, father. and author. And anything else? What am I missing?
Yes,
and
you're
cat
missing.
owner.
There we were going
And
to go.
cat
I
owner.
was just going to finish that. A guy who loves his kitty. And I've had a comment with my family. And this may sound bad to everybody, so don't diss me for this. My wife's number 1, cat's number 2, kids number 3, grandkids number 4. I'm sorry, I've made a full disclosure, but that's just Suki and I's life with our weird kitty. It just makes us both very happy.
A man with priorities, everybody.
Thank
John Collopy.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Great. Thanks.